All right, this is the Final Percent podcast live from Canada, Windsor, Ontario, and I've got two Canadians, eh?
Hey, nice work.
I'm learning the vernacular. I'm trying to communicate with the locals. So adding.
You've got your Tim Hortons too. You fit right
And I've
in.
got my Timmy's.
I think you probably used the toonie to buy that.
I probably, yeah. I remember I was so we're in the Caesar's Palace, which is it's the same company, but definitely a different version of Caesar's than Las Vegas, to be very clear.
There's no smoke in the casino for
That's
one.
fantastic.
Yep.
I love no smoke in the casino. But I remember I went and paid for something, and they gave me everything back and then some change, and I was just like, excuse me. Didn't realize that dollars are not a thing in Canada.
No, when you pay with like a 20, you're getting loads of change.
You're getting a handful of change back.
Yeah, change is a little different up in Canada.
Yeah,
I feel like your
more.
piggy banks fill up faster here.
They do.
100%.
Yeah,
Like
it's great.
in a much better fashion because Kayla and I have this big Coke bottle that we've been putting change in for seemingly forever. And like literally years, and I'll bet you there's like $500 in there, and we're probably talking about 7 years of putting change in there. And then we were just talking about it the other day. It's like, so what do we want to do? Like that, it's not like we're saving up for it. That doesn't even buy like a quarter of a plane ticket for anywhere we'd want to go. So so we'll start getting toonies and
There you go.
loonies, toonies and loonies.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. So anyway, I have two of my very good friends, Craig and Meredith. They own Road of Life Coaching, and we're going to talk a little bit of the road that got them to here, not just Canada, but the idea of coaching, getting excited about, different communities, different experiences. So whoever wants to go first, I would love to ask the question, when were you first like, hey, maybe I could be a coach?
Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
I think it came sometime between San Diego and Boulder. And so that's sort of, I guess, Q2 of 2021. And so we had left our corporate jobs a few months before and immediately tried to basically buy ourselves a new job by starting a business that we quickly decided we hated. And then decided we'd take a step back. Like before we jump into our next business, we need to spend some time on us. So I needed to spend some time on me to figure out what it is I really want to do. And so we were at the retreat where we were hanging with you. Mm-hmm. And a few things happened at that retreat. One, I felt really stressed at that retreat because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So we're learning business stuff, we're learning mindset stuff, but I didn't have a vehicle through which to apply it.
Yeah, how does this apply to me?
Totally.
Yeah.
So everyone else was talking about all their businesses, and in fact, even one of the speakers was like, just pick a business, it doesn't matter. I'm in Windows, who cares? Just pick a business. I was like, it doesn't feel right to me. And the other things that happened at that retreat was the Katie Richardson.
Yeah.
Who, not what. Who are you?
Who are you?
And so that her talk really hit me in the feels. That
she's good at that.
Yeah, she hit me in the feels pretty hard. And so I started writing my list. And then one of your talks on what are your 10 truths?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. That was weirdly hard for me. And so after that retreat, we really dug into who we are as people and started working on ourselves. And it was in that period of self-discovery that I found myself evolving and changing.
So good.
Because of the coaching I'd received. And it was like, I can do this for other people. And when I started really thinking about it and looked back, I had been doing this throughout different periods of my life already. Mm-hmm. Coaching wasn't actually new to me.
Yeah.
When I think about it in a past life, 20 years ago, I was a personal trainer. That's a coach.
That's definitely a coach.
And I loved it. Loved. I did it. I put myself through university personal training, and it was wonderful. It was weirdly, almost counsel-y with people. People will tell you a lot of stuff when you're working out first thing in the morning. You know everything about their life.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when I looked back, I was like, yeah, I've done this before, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so I think that was my first sort of, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna change lanes completely and take a hard left turn and look at coaching other people.
I remember talking with you guys in San Diego, and it kind of goes back to it doesn't matter, just pick a business and stuff. And I just remember you guys, because you guys have always been very health conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to take your lives to the next level.
I know
And
where this is going.
you're like, we're gonna buy a grilled cheese company, and I was like, what? Like, that's the next move. I don't know if that's the next move.
Yeah.
Like,
And how out of alignment would that feel right now?
Yeah.
oh, it doesn't even seem like we're in the same solar
Totally.
system.
Like by the time we got to Boulder, like 3 months later, and because we had decided at that point that coaching was where we wanted to go, that retreat I felt like a different person at that retreat, because I felt settled and aligned, like, within myself, and that this is the right path.
Yeah.
So what about you, man? When did you make the switch from grilled cheese?
Yeah, it was along the same timeline, I think. And Katie Richardson's talk did speak to me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The who are you? Because to that point, we had been asking the wrong question. It was like, what do we want to do? What are we going to do with our time? What are we going to do with ourselves? And it was like, when she said, you're asking the wrong question, it was like she was reaching out and talking right to me, us.
Yeah.
Like, you're asking the wrong question. Who do you want to be? And then we thought about that a little bit more, and it was like, who do I want to be? And
It's almost like B comes before do. I mean,
100%. 100%.
yeah. And so started to think about that a little bit, and started journaling and writing down who I want to be, and realized that I want to be someone who helps other people get through some of the challenges that I've been through in life. And, when I look back on kind of my experiences similar to Mare's, it's like I grew up playing sports. I had coaches in my life since I was like 4, and they've always helped me, playing sports. And then I was a coach. I coached a girls basketball team for a minute with a buddy of mine who was, and it was a really cool experience. And then in university, I was a big brother, like a big brother, little brother program.
you're pretty tall. You're a lot of people's big brother.
And I look back on it, and that was like a coach mentor situation.
Absolutely.
That, I had a blast, and I still keep in touch with the little boy. He's not a little boy anymore. He's like in his 20s, but I keep in touch with him still, and it's maintained that relationship, and it's just been a really cool experience. And then, so as we're going through this kind of journey of,
Going down the road of life.
Who do we want to be?
Down the road
of life. Who do we want to be? And as a result of that, what do we ultimately want to do? It just made sense. And you brought up coaching. You've talked about coaching with us, and it was like, it makes a lot of sense. Like that's something that's who I want to be. I want to be someone that can be an anchor for or a snowplow for someone else, a cornerstone, help people, get past some of those challenges in their life that they don't know kind of how to navigate.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, they're not necessarily, it goes back to the kind of cliche saying at this point of, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I met you guys in Phoenix, how much you guys, how you would show up for other people, and how often you would try to be, very compassionate yet insightful and, guiding. I mean, coaching's in both of your DNAs. Like, I think it's interesting because looking back, we see it plain as day now.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I had a lot of pressure on me in that thing because it's like I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think that kind of goes back to the societal norms of so many people are focused on, what do you do? So much so that if you say, hey, who are you? If you try to answer that question that is in Katie Richardson's talk, people will answer with what they do. What they do is their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people start removing out of that, one of the things that, I have to do as a coach, there's a lot of times where people will say, I'm just so angry. And one of the things that people need to identify is anger is an action. It's not an identity. So if you say, I'm so angry, you've got to pull them out of that. And so one of the things that I'll use on people is they'll say, I'm so angry. And I'm like, where are you angry? And they're like, what do you mean? No, like, where do you feel the anger? Is it like in your heart? Is it in your brain? Like, are you like tense in your knees? Like, where are you angry? And what I actually just did without them realizing is I pulled them out of their brain, out of the identity, and I made them take an objective approach. Because here's the thing. We've all been angry at something. But like, let's say that you're super angry at, someone that knocked you over on the way to the bathroom or something. But at that moment, do you still love Mare? Of course. Like, there's nothing on planet Earth that's going to make you not love her. So,
of course.
Well, now you're angry and you're in love? No, it's just where are you directing your energy?
Right.
Emotion stands for energy in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people get so emotional around things, and so they're going, this is what I do. And so that's why we try to make, emotions our identity. And we try to do all of these things, but we're making work our identity. We're making our social circles our identity. And I think that's why when, people like you kind of pull themselves out of the rat race, and then they ask that question, you guys are like, wow, who am I? Mm-hmm. Like, what? And so then you just look back to the patterns, and it's like, I've always cared. I've always helped people. This is the way I show up. Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of bolster that, and you become the person who shows up, who equips, who adds awareness to people's lives. And, we talked about, before we got on this podcast, things that people need. I talk a lot about the archer, and I won't go into that story, but bottom line is anybody making a decision that's going to move the needle in their life, move things down forward, they need two things, sight and stability. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have a vision. A lot of people have that goal. They have a dream. They have a dream before they have a goal, because a lot of people, they don't know how to build the plan so it turns into a goal. But they definitely have a dream. That's called vision. Mm-hmm. But not a lot of people are making decisions from a stable frame of mind, a stable framework, a stable footing. And I think that's what good coaches do. And that's something that, I was talking to you guys before we got on this, is one thing that you guys bring to the table really easily is this super stable approach to life, mm-hmm. to execution, an objective way of looking at it. So, one of the things that I would really like to ask is, where does that come from? Because stability is not easy, especially in today's day and age. And then, you've gone through a divorce before. It's hard to stay stable. You guys have both left corporate jobs. It's hard to stay stable. Mm-hmm. You guys are married and have one of the best marriages that I've ever seen. And it's super, they both wink. So for anybody, we're going to put this on YouTube. You need to go on YouTube right now and see what just happened. Because right when we said that, unprompted, they both winked at each other. So I'm telling you, this is a special relationship. But it's because they dream together, they see together, they have that vision together, but they're also stable together. So where does this give us some cheat codes. People need some help out there to get stable. They want stability in their marriage or their relationships. Give us some of the secret sauce. And also, everyone who's watching this, none of this is prompted. I did not tell them any of these questions, because these are questions that are just coming out of my brain as it comes to keep the authenticity alive. So they're sitting here thinking about,
oh crap, what do we say?
That's a great question. Interesting. So who wants to go first on where stability comes from?
You want me to go?
Yep, go ahead.
For me, because you alluded to, I've been in other relationships that didn't work out. Went through a divorce. And so life wasn't always stable. But I feel as though having this relationship and prioritizing it, it's a priority for me. for us, we put in the time. Like, we make sure there's date nights. We make sure we're checking in with each other to see, how'd your day go? How are your thoughts on this? Like, we're going down this path. Where are you? Like, here's where I am, but I want to make sure that you're cool with this. Like, you're comfortable with this. So I think it's just checking in and having that open communication and really prioritizing what matters to you. Because if it matters to you, you have to make it a priority. And if you don't, then it's going to fall by the wayside. Other things are going to get in the way, like work and kids and other things in life happen. But if you don't prioritize your relationship, it's eventually going to kind of crumble, whittle away. Like, so I think that's a big one for us, is putting a huge priority and open communication, checking in frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to be stable if you don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if you're not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
What about you?
I obviously 100% agree with everything that's been said so far.
She's like, ditto.
Totally ditto. Also, I think we get stability from our shared vision. Like, what I mean by that is, like, we did an exercise, and it wasn't a one and done, but we sat down and, what do we want our life to be like? What do we want our future to be like? And we looked at it from all aspects. Like, what do we want our relationship to be like? All of our relationships, family, friends, everybody. Yeah. Where do we want to live? What do we want our free time to look like? What do we want our career to look like? What do we want all of these things to look like? And we got really super specific.
And we did that individually to start.
Yes.
And then came together to see, where do we align and where are there gaps?
Yeah.
And we were
pretty aligned, obviously.
Aligned, for sure.
Yeah. There were certain things, like he said he wanted to run an Ironman. I certainly don't want to do that. But I am very excited to stand on the sidelines and cheer him on. Like, that's cool. But a lot of the stuff that we wrote down was very aligned. Like, we've got a very aligned vision of our life and our future. And like I said, we're not going to do that once and forget about it. That's a work in progress. A recurring thing. So we sat down after that a few months later and, like, what's our 10-year plan? What's our 5-year plan? And I've never done that. Like, when I was in my corporate career, it's like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh my God, I hated that question.
Yeah.
I literally had no idea where I saw myself in 5 years.
Yeah.
Hated it. And I also think there's just a level of appreciation and respect.
Yeah.
Like, because we didn't meet till our 30s.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure we crossed paths, like, multiple times. We both come from similar areas of the world, and I'm sure we crossed paths. I'd love to see, like, if Salo or Belford could have followed me around for a couple of years with a camera.
Like, how often was, like, Craig just
like, meet or just miss? But we met at the right time, and I had been single essentially for a decade and gone on a lot of terrible dates. He did his own thing and was in another relationship, and so I think by the time we came together, we knew what we wanted in a partner. We could see that, and we can respect each other. And I remember I've been told by a couple of people a lot of times, like, it's all about who you marry.
Yeah.
It really, like, it's all about your partner. It's
100%.
all about the person you choose, and it's work. Like, I remember saying in my 20s, you mean it's not like the work's not finding him? The work comes after? And they were like, yeah, like, because she had they had a great marriage. They have a great marriage. And I said, like, after I find him, I have to do work? And she said, yeah, that's when it starts. Once you find that person, that's when the work starts.
So
and, like,
good.
that communication and the check-in. And the last thing I'll say is, like, it's going to sound weird, but we hug. Like, every day we hug. And, like, that physical touch, like, there's something about the oxytocin release. And, like, I think that's also important in terms of keeping us stable and looking the same way, going in the same direction.
Yeah. One of the things that Mayor's mentioned multiple times that I just always love watching you light up when you talk about Craig. Because when you left and you did the I Love You More through the window, we basically had, like, a little love fest on how much everyone loves Craig, which, I mean, I love you more, by the way.
I accept.
Now it's memorialized. Like, Craig, when you watch this later, it's still true.
Love you more.
But it's, she said, you know, one of the things that he's done from the beginning is every time we would experience something, he would say, how was that for you? what were your favorite parts? And like you even mentioned, like checking in with her and saying, hey, like we're going down this road. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I think one of the things that is important in the vision and the shared, vision is the shared experience. And people forget that if they're in the same room, they're still having a different experience until they communicate.
Yep.
And so even with you guys, like in this scenario, creating content, creating a podcast, talking about your life, all of these things, you're having an experience right now. He's having an experience. But we know that when all is said and done, at some point, you're going to look over at her and go, hey, how was that for you? Hey, what did you think? And then it kind of syncs up the experience.
100%.
So once we sync the experience, so you had yours, and then we sync them, we just get more stable. So that communication and that shared experience is almost like curing the foundation that we're building on.
And a lot of that happens for us at night when we go to bed. We check in like just before we go to sleep. It's like, how was that for you? Like it's like a little bit of a debrief, and just to, like here's how I took that, or how I experienced that. How was that for you? And we just get that alignment there. It's cool.
So the other thing that I think, let's just talk about how crazy people think sometimes like coaches are, or getting coaching is. And because we can take a deep dive on this, because when we boil everything down to this, we're all sitting in another country, because right now, even though yes, you guys live in Canada, you guys live like 18 hours from here in Canada.
That's right.
But currently, in the complete opposite direction, you're living 18 hours from here in like AZ.
That's right.
Yep.
So, but you're here. you've flown in, thousands of miles away, so that you can go to pizza night.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been having the FOMO of pizza night on social media for 33 weeks.
Watching Berkeley make those pizzas every Friday.
The chef's hat?
I
got to get in there and get one of those pizzas.
Gotta get it. So, for me, there's a lot of people who say, Greg, how did you do it? And it's such an interesting question, because, they can talk about, like, similar to what we talked about here, like, is it a good marriage, or is it a business, or is it you got on stage, or you became a coach, whatever. But so many people are like, they go so fast to the word, this specific word. I know you guys have heard me talk about this, but the specific word of how. And I always reconfigure those letters, and I say it's the who.
Very much.
And pizza night is so much more than pizza night, because we're doing this as our first real event of the TFP group, and we have a lot of Canadians that have joined our group, and Dale and Marla have this pizza night, and so we just put it on the books as more of an afterthought, because it wasn't actually on there. And then we were like, no, this could be really cool, because it's become like this staple. But then everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm totally coming to that. And the magic moments that happen from literally just this phrase, showing up, is basically everything. Because think about it. Are you going to have a great marriage if you don't show up?
Nope.
Yeah.
Are you going to have a great business if you don't show up? And so the community that can take you to the next level is so important. But you have to show up. And there's so many people who won't. And then this goes back to what Craig said. Like, I asked him about stability. What does stability mean for you, and this, that, and the other? The first thing that he says is priority, priority, priority. So it's like, okay, if I want to build a community, I've got to show up and make it a priority. If I want to be a part of the community, I've got to contribute. Like in our Facebook group, the Final Percent Network, like you guys are holding down Wonderful Wednesday.
Correct.
So you guys are sharing your journey. And one of the things we take a page out of Russell Brunson's book of, document, don't create. Like we're sitting in a hotel in their business center, which, if someone walks in, just for all the listeners, we may have to press pause, or maybe we just give them a microphone and we interview them. Who knows? We never know what's going to happen. But we made it a priority. We met last night. We talked about things, and we made it a priority. Like, we met at 7 a.m. our time, which isn't early for you guys. It is early for me. But you have to make it a priority. And then we're going to make it a priority to love on the community and talk to the community. And I think that people oftentimes get coaching misconstrued because they show up, and we talked about this before the interview started, is they show up as a consumer. So they're like, I paid you the money for the coaching, so fix me.
Right.
It's like, no, yeah, you didn't actually, like, you didn't go to the doctor. We're not performing a bypass and now you can go eat the cheeseburger. Like, we're more of, oh, you're about to have a heart attack? Let's go get on the treadmill and stop messing up on the diet. Like, we're going to help you through that. We're going to give you encouragement. We're going to give you tips. But we're going to
give you the truth.
We're going to tell you the truth, unfortunately. And that's the biggest thing that I think in coaching, people will pay tons of money, but then they don't do the work. Or they pay tons of money and they think that it's a done-for-you service. And I love what's actually going around right now is they say, you know, abs and a good body and this, that, and the other is, you know, basically one of the only things you can't just go buy. Like, it's easier to go get a Ferrari than be healthy. Because you can just buy that and instantly have it, and you can still, you know, have whatever lifestyle choices you want. But if you, like, Meredith has, like, a biological age, like, way lower than mine from we're all on Viome and we're really taking a deep dive. But it's like, that's someone I want to hang out with. I don't want to hang out with someone where it's like, so I'm 37, my biological age, now I've been working on this, guys, is 40. So, like, immediately I'm like, I need to get this down. And then Meredith's over here, you know.
I'm 40 and my biological age is 34.
Yeah, so she's like, she's 6 years below her. Like, that would be the equivalent of me having a biological age of 31. And I'm just like, so that's someone I want to hang out with. That's someone where they're setting an example that is an environment for me to go to the next level. And I think that that's important to recognize about, you know, coaching is about, more often than not, being around people that are better than you at something. If you're the best at everything in the room, you should probably get into a new room.
Yep.
And, you know, I love, you know, hanging out with people like you because it immediately makes me a better human being. And, you know, I went through this health journey, and, you know, most of the people I hang out with, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm like, man, I'm making some good decisions. And then I hang out with you guys. I'm like, man, I gotta be way more disciplined. These guys are crushing me. Because, like, I last night we were all hanging out. I had 3 Diet Pepsis. And, like, you couldn't even pay these guys to put Diet Pepsi in their body. And I'm like, gosh, I got to get to that level. Like, I am not at the final percent, but that's who I want to be around, you know? But, you know, full disclosure, probably a year ago, I mean, that would have been 10 Diet Pepsis. Like, it would have been way, way worse. And so it's around being, like, it's about being around those people. But I think just talking about that, because so many people will come into personal growth, they come into coaching, and they think that it's basically like a consumer thing. I paid for this, guaranteed result, see you later. Let's talk about, like, the real work you guys have gone through. Like, how just, you know, and not just from everyone knows that there's always a monetary investment, but, like, I'm talking about, like, the mental investment, the learning investment, the work, the trust in yourself investment. All of these things, like, talk about that journey of just having to dig in and freaking do the work.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where to start with it, to be honest. Like, and you said the monetary investment. I didn't even go there. That didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
That is, like, that was the
Bottom of the
least
list.
of it.
It's the bottom of the list.
And it's the easiest.
It's for sure the easiest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, we really started digging in and doing the work when we were in New Orleans and we started that meditation series. Like, for me, that was the first. Well, I guess in San Diego, we set the message in a bottle. We set the goals. Like, big, scary, audacious
goals. Yes.
Yeah. And we had been talking before that because we had moved back east to PEI, and there was a lovely little running trail in the backyard. And we started running a bit, and he's like, I want to run a marathon. It's been on my mind for a while. So he wrote that down. And I was like, yeah, I'm not a runner, and I'll talk about that ad nauseum at some other point in my life. But I've never been a runner. I was an avid anti-runner, and so just getting out and running a few laps in the backyard was like pretty big for me. So I'm like, I'll run a 10K. Yeah. And he looks at me and says, you could run a 10K tomorrow if you really tried. You need to put a half marathon on the list. Yeah. And it pissed me off. He brought it up multiple times, and I'm like, leave it alone. I'm not running a half marathon, like multiple times. Yep. And then we're on that stupid boat trying to get real big, scary goals, and I was like, oh, fine. I'll write down the stupid half marathon. So I did. And then in April, we started doing a meditation series, and the very first week in the meditation series was about forgiveness. And so that was big for me. There was some shit. Oops, there was some stuff that I needed to dig into. It was shit. It really was. Sorry.
So that was my favorite part. That's now the best part of the podcast.
So like that, right off the bat, there was some stuff I had to work through and release.
That's definitely gifable and memeable, by the way. Cut that out and
slow that.
That's going to be a private little outtake for the TFP Network Facebook group.
Oh, good. So that for me was the first start, and also when we were in New Orleans, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I kept a gratitude journal for 5 minutes 20 years ago. It didn't stick for me then. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I need to buy a journal. So I was on Amazon and picked a journal that I thought was pretty, that I would write in, and I started doing that every day, writing in my journal, and not like a traditional, what am I feeling journal. It was like super structured, because I'm a little structured. So that's what works for me. Yeah. So 5 things I'm grateful for. And then my goals, the first of which was I have completed a half marathon. I had to write it out every day. And so I wrote my 10 goals, like my 10 big goals. And then my who am I's, my 5 who am I's from Katie's talk. Yeah. And then my 10, which I turned into 12 magically once I got 10, 2 more just came to me. So my 12 truths.
I love
And so that was my everyday journaling. And I don't know that journaling wasn't the single most effective thing I did to help me transform. And by having to write down that I've completed a half marathon every day. Yeah. I had to do it. I had to work at that. And so
and crushed it.
Totally crushed it. It was not without obstacles.
Oh yeah.
The run itself was the least of it in the end. I ended up spraining my ankle, I ended up getting shin splints. It was a friggin' physiological nightmare leading up to it, to the point that he was the most I'd run before the 21.1 kilometers was 7K. In Denver at altitude. I nearly freaking died, by the way. But he's like, what are you going to do? What's your plan for the half marathon? I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just going to run until my shins hurt and see how it goes. And if I have to run one in Arizona before my year is up, because I gave myself a year to do it, then I'll run it in Arizona.
So good.
I'm just going to see how it goes. And it just went. It was great. I turned on some music. I turned on Coach Bennett from Nike. Just happy coincidence that the head Nike running coach is Bennett.
I love it.
And so I had Coach Bennett.
And low key, while he's talking, you see his face.
Totally. It ended up being totally awesome. And I feel like the half marathon work was like a metaphor, symbolizes all the other work that had to go into believing I could.
The whole running thing was so interesting for me because in San Diego, I think that's when we decided to do it. Was it in San Diego or was it in
No, it was Boulder.
Denver.
Yeah.
Denver.
So Craig's talking to me and I sign up for this stupid marathon as well. And it's so interesting. So I'm just going to fast forward because I want to get to Craig's response on this. But my take on this is he and I end up, he flies in for something, and right before the TFP summit, that's what it was, the day before or something.
Yes.
We're just hey, we're going to go on one of our practice runs. But what if we just ran the marathon right now? Let's just do that. And so I'm so not in shape to let's do the marathon now, but I'm really good at not quitting.
Yeah.
So I I would, and to be very clear, here's why you need a team and you need great people around you. Because the chances of me finishing the marathon if he wasn't running with me are actually zero. Not like I probably wouldn't have, like I would not have. But one of the big lessons for me on running the marathon, and we had some great conversations, but the big thing that came to me was the stupid saying when people go, life's a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm like, I would rather sprint than run a marathon every single time. Because check this out. When you get to like 18, 19, 20, 21 miles and you like have a fractured foot, you're going, I have got to be the dumbest person. And I'm hobbling like a penguin. And like I'm cramping up, and we're trying to get into the freaking Jeep, and like our legs are just like this, and we're just like, but what if it like bent? Like no, we're like trying to get in, and there's all these things happening, and it's just so interesting because now, you know, my relationship with you guys, and then him actually challenging me to the marathon as well, and then you know, I said yes too. Like why did I do that?
Fine.
And but I've used that so much, and then in solidarity, because I couldn't make it to the PEI marathon, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're not going to run a marathon. Well, they don't know me. So I was speaking in Washington, D.C. I say it from stage, and I actually recruited a bunch of people who are like, I'm running a marathon with you. One person actually ran the whole thing with me. And then we got to talk, and I mapped it out on Garmin, and I had my whole thing run me by every single national monument.
Pretty
so cool. I'm like going to like the Jefferson Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Memorial and the White House and the Capitol building. I mean, I'm never going to forget that run. But then the thing is like, when did that run start? It started the day that Craig said, you know, you like, and just so matter of fact, that's his superpower that kind of pisses me off sometimes. He'll ask you questions so matter of fact. You want to run with me? You're running with me, right? And I'm like,
okay.
Sure. Like I just go super machismo. Like, of course I'm going to freaking run a marathon. And then like my brain, I'm not kidding. Like 30 seconds after I agree to this stupid thing, I'm like, what did I just do? I hate running. Like I actually hate running.
Me too.
But it taught me so much about life and myself, when to sprint, when not to sprint, why they say you can't sprint a marathon. But then it also taught me like consistency and not stopping and getting to the end on those big, hairy, audacious goals. It's actually way harder than any sprint. Like, and marathons are way harder. Like anybody could like run from one end to a football field to another, all at different paces. But legitimately, not everyone can run a marathon.
No, and to your point around like health and abs and all that stuff, like you can't run a marathon if you don't put the work in every day. You can't skip days and expect to be able to do it.
I will say, I was still leading up to my marathon thing. So like the longest I had run before we did it was 10 miles, and that damn near killed me. And then of course I'm like, hey, let's just do it now. And you're like, okay, like, you sure, bro? Like, you have an event in like 2 days. So I'm like, I got this.
But you crushed it.
Crushed is
Finished
is probably more.
When you finish a marathon, you've crushed it.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
By definition.
But man, I cannot stress the importance of like building things. Like we always say, doing cool things with cool people.
Yep.
Like I could not have gotten to the end of it if I didn't have you right by my side. And I think that that's the thing that people really discount, because they go, I'm a self-made man. Well, no, you're not. Like, you came from your mom regardless, so that's already not true. But who wants to do anything alone? Like, it's so much more fun to do things with cool people. Like, it was funny. We started this company called TFP Life, and I had someone ask me, because we had a bunch of people like come in as initial investors, and they actually asked me like, you don't need to have like, why would you have investors? And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I have investors? Well, like, is it like you're mitigating risk? I said, no, I like building things with people. And I've learned that businesses are way more successful if there are people. along the lines with it, if there are things with it, and doing cool things with cool people, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, business, learning, you find as many cool people as you can, and then you show up. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing here at Pizza Night. So I know I just had to interject my marathon story because, Craig's this genesis of weird, big, hairy, audacious fitness goals. But, take us down your road, whether, running, community, why we're here, all of those things.
Yeah, so it really was, I think, last year was like the year of growth. Like it was
transformation.
Yeah, it really was. So I think going to some of those retreats, starting in Arizona, to your point, like felt a little lost at that retreat. Didn't really know we were still fresh out of our corporate jobs and kind of, I would say, a ship without a rudder. We were just kind of out there, kind of bobbing in the ocean, trying to figure out who we were and what we wanted to do. And then, the next one, the message in a bottle, and we really had to get clear on what do we want to do over the next year, and write down some big audacious goals. Mm-hmm. And the marathon was one that had been in the back of my mind for quite a while. My dad ran marathons when I was a kid, and I always thought that was pretty impressive that he was able to do that. And so it was always kind of a goal of mine, but always a back burner. I never put in the time or the effort to do it, and then eventually decided that it's time. Let's do this thing. But I think it really started with the meditations that you talked about, and journaling. Those two things for me have been game changers. Like it really, I went internal. Like I've never, in my corporate world, I never took the time to focus on me and figure out who I was and what I wanted to be. And this journey has really turned that inward on me. Good. So it was really, I realized that going through this, when you talk about those meditations, like guided meditations around forgiveness and abundance and gratitude, that I was carrying a little bit of anger of past experiences that I had to forgive, and not just other people, but also myself. Yeah. Like I went through a bad relationship, and I played a part in that, obviously, yeah. Right? 50% of it. So, and when you go through something like that, you feel like a failure, and so you carry that with you, and you have to look inward, and you were doing the best you could in the moment. You have to kind of forgive yourself and forgive others who have kind of maybe done some things that you don't appreciate in your past, and just let it go. It doesn't serve you going forward. And so I think that was a real turning point for me, was letting some of that stuff go and growing as a person, and then journaling every day, like figuring out who I was, who I wanted to be, writing out my goals. I write them out every day. And so I've got line of sight to them every day. One of them was a marathon. I wrote it out every day. Run a marathon. And was able to check that off. So it was really cool. I think
we still have one more marathon to run, because we have to at least get 3.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah, and we want to run. Maybe you come to PEI?
Oh, I'm in. Yeah. And then we're also, so one thing everyone should know, we're going to ride our bikes across America.
Yeah.
Right.
So like his marathon moment is before I'm 40, I have to do what's called the Ram Race, which Kayla is not excited about.
No.
She will definitely be in the car following me, protecting me from traffic. She has already told me that's a non-negotiable, and it needs to be her, because she's like, I need to be the one protecting you. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a little crazy. It's only like 3,200 miles on a bike.
It's going to be such a cool adventure.
Oh my goodness. And that's the real thing is the adventure.
And I told my dad about that.
Oh God.
So, because my dad, he's into fitness. He ran marathons, like I talked about, and he loves sports, and he's just
big pickleballer.
Yeah, loves pickleball.
Oh, we should go find pickleball court.
He's in his late 60s now. Can't do the things that he used to be able to do, but still loves athletic feats and accomplishments. And so every time I see him, I remember the text I sent you the other day. Hey, when do you think we're gonna look into doing that race?
Yeah.
My dad, every time I see him, because I mentioned to it one time,
and which is every week, right? He's in Arizona too. So every week
he asks me every day, every time I see him, So what's the update on the race? When are you doing that race? When are you gonna do? He wants me so badly to do this race.
You've told him multiple times, like, I don't know. I'll let you know.
So have you bought your bike yet?
No,
Oh,
I haven't even started training.
So what
I'm
we
still
should
running,
do?
I'm still doing some stuff. But
What we should do when we're in Arizona, because we're coming up on the first TFP retreat, March 3rd. We should go shop for your bike.
Yes.
And I'll help you get fitted so that you don't get got with one of the bike salesmen.
yeah, let's do it.
But yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a milestone that he'll appreciate. He'll see
yeah.
some progress. He'll be
He's like,
okay,
you have a bike.
So this is going to go down.
Oh, it's going down.
Yeah.
I really need people to do it with me and train, because if I don't have anyone, I will do it by myself, which means it's no longer a relay, which means I will probably die. Because you have 8 days, I think, to finish the race, and doing that when you're like alone on a bike, that means you have to average something like what, 360 miles or something per,
almost 400 a day.
yeah, per day.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I can assure
every
you, you will
day.
not have to do it alone. You can count. I will be there.
you have at least one more
You have
person.
at least one more.
I know
will be-
Salo's in.
got
Yeah,
two.
Salo's been my cycling buddy for a long time. So,
And I hope Julie's still in so she can do the hills for you.
dude, Kayla doesn't like this, but like I want the descents, which I'm pretty good at, but she doesn't want me to be, because that means I'm at 60 miles an hour on a bicycle.
Yowza.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be fun. We're just gonna have a good time.
I'll be in the car with Kayla.
But how cool is that going to be? Because if you think about it, like, how much great footage is that going to be with you guys owning
Amazing.
the road of life?
Totally.
I think the people don't always realize with the road of life, one of the big things that you have to do on your road of life is identify your vehicle. And sometimes you're in a car. Sometimes the road of life is a dirt road. Sometimes you're building the road. Sometimes it's an interstate, it's a highway, it's a city street.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that you have to understand, okay, here's my vehicle, and then what's the speed limit? Like, and so a lot of people, are in a school zone, but they think they're on the interstate, and that's why their business model or their life is fundamentally broken, because they're in the wrong vehicle, on the wrong road, going the wrong speed. And that's why I love all of the different things that you guys are tying into the road of life, because everyone's traveling roads.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing these different things. We have a course coming out. I think it's going to be launched as soon as our first TFP retreat. So it'll be available on our app, on the Final Percent website, and then as well as your own website, which we're working on, which is going to be really exciting. And then we're going to be finalizing the logo here soon.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Exciting times.
It's
Very
really it's
exciting.
cool. It's really cool.
Yep.
What's the best way right now for people to contact you if they need a little bit more of the Road of Life coaches in their life? What's the best, whether it's an email, whether it's Instagram, what's the preferred method of contact so that people can say, hey, I want to have another conversation with these guys?
I think probably Instagram's the easiest place to get us right now.
Yeah, Instagram or Facebook. We're on both.
Yeah.
Both
Instagram
social
or
platforms.
Facebook?
Instagram,
Yeah.
I'm at MF McKay.
MF McKay,
At CSH Bennett.
CHS Bennett.
CSH Bennett. Stephen Hubert.
Stephen Hubert Bennett. Middle names.
Look at
You were today years old when you learned that.
I was, I'm learning all kinds of things with you guys. So, but I'm really excited. It's an honor to be partners with you guys. I mean, obviously, you guys are huge in our TFP community, and then you're building, like your own arm of like our coaching firm, because there's so many things that both of you guys are just absolute, like when you guys really enter your, like, and I know maybe this isn't the most politically correct term, it's just how I feel sometimes. I love finding people where when they enter their zone of genius, I get put in my zone of stupidity. Because I immediately become better and smarter, and I'm learning something. And, the way that you guys approach life, the way that you guys are building, your experiences are vastly different than mine. And one of the things that I do is like I will surround myself with people who like structures in their DNA, because then by proxy I get more structured. But here's the cool thing, because I'm this like free thinking spirit, started out as a musician. If I surround myself with a bunch of people who are structured, by the very nature of that, I have to be less structured because they take care of so much of the extra structure. And so abstract thought, like technology, all of these things, you guys, by its very nature, like you have to learn and think about that way less, just because you can be like, let's just call Greg. I don't need to go down that road. He's gone down that road. We can stay off of that city street. We don't need to go into the weeds.
That's
we don't
right.
need to go into that
We'll stay
school
on the
zone and
highway
slow it
here.
down. We're going to stay on the highway. And, we're just going to give Greg a call, and we're going to keep going our speed. And I think that that's one of the things is, how often do you have to take an exit on your road? How often do you have to get off the interstate of where you're going, of your destination, to get gas, to fill yourself back up, to go learn something new? Now, if it's an adventure, do it as often as you want, sure. But when you do it out of necessity because you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm lost. When you do it out of necessity and it's the middle of the night and the person you're getting information from is like a questionable gas station attendant, just go down this road and like the lightning strikes. It's like, I don't know if I want to go down that road.
We like adventure, but not that much.
Yes, I like adventure, but not peril.
Yeah.
And I love the approach you guys are taking. I love analogies. I think it helps really simplify things for people. And just the idea of the road of life, the destinations, mapping your life out and getting the right map to get you where you want to go. You guys are basically map designers.
Yeah.
And you guys are cartographers and helping people, traverse things that they didn't know existed. They didn't know that there were national parks on the road. And it's like, hey, by the way, you're going to go here and you should stop at this park because it's really rad. And that park might be a great marriage. That park might be a great seminar. That park might be a retreat. That park might be whatever it is. But people are going to feel way safer to do it if they have the right coaching, the right map, the right mentors, and they feel supported along the way. And so I love your approach to coaching. It's an honor to be a part of it. And I can assure everyone listening to this podcast, this is probably the first of many discussions with McKay and Bennett, because they're definitely, I'm not going to tell them who. I mean, they're in the top 2 of my favorite people. I'm not going to say who made 2. I got to give a shout out to my dad. That's something he says. He goes, if you're not number 1, you're in the top 2. I'm like, what does that say? The other thing my dad always says that I'll give the listeners, say this to your waiter. When you sit down and the waiter says, how are you doing? Look at your waiter and say, I feel a lot more like I do now than I did when I got here. And just look at look at their face when you say that to them. My dad says that so often, and it's very much a Jeffism. So with that being said, thanks for taking this road of life with us. Thank you to the Road of Life coaches, and hopefully we also see you guys at pizza night. If you guys are there, it's going to be pretty fantastic. And then look out for their course. Come hang out with us in Arizona. And then we'll chop a bunch of this interview up into little segments with all the best stories so that you can kind of do micro consumption if you don't have 54 minutes and 50 seconds to listen to the whole episode. So thank you guys so much. I love you more. I love you more.
Excellent.
And when you guys watch this later, I love you more.